folks, welcome back to another Throat Punch Lunch. We are back from Essen, and oh my goodness, what is it? Was it a great time? We had a lot of good times at the booth. We met a lot of interesting people as they came by and talked to us, shake their hands, and took pictures and all of this kind of stuff. Just an amazingly fun time at the booth. Walking around, it was a wee bit crowded, and that's an understatement. But we really enjoyed ourselves, had a lot of good connections that were there, and got to demo some games, got to scoop, or lowdown rather, not really a scoop, on a lot of the games that were coming out there. So we had a fantastic time. And now we're back at work. Well, I want to get to our segment contributors. They have once again knocked it out of the park as far as the content they're providing for Throat Punch Lunch. We hope you enjoy it. Let's get to them.
Hi, this is Ambie from Board Game Blitz, and this is Strategically Thematic, a segment where I talk about theme in different strategic games. This time, I'm talking about BAAACK, Devastation of Indines. BAAACK is a two-player dueling card game that's basically like Street Fighter in a board game. Each player chooses a character to play, and the characters each have different abilities and specialties. Gameplay is done with a set of cards that represent the movement, attack range, and power, and special abilities of your character. There are a ton of characters to choose from in BAAACK Devastation of Indines, and the characters are also compatible with other BAAACK games. So far I've only played Devastation, since it has plenty of awesome characters. Your characters move around on a 7-space long board, and players simultaneously choose what their character will do each turn, mimicking the real-time aspect of fighting video games. If you've played Street Fighter or another similar game, you may know that there are a few special moves that characters can do when you perform the correct combination of actions. BAAACK also has unique special moves for every character, and every time you do an action, you're combining two cards, a base and a style, to perform an attack. Numbers on the cards sum up to get the attack's final power, range, and priority, and everything together defines what the attack will be. Once you've done an attack, your cards go into a cooldown queue, so you can't spam the same attack over and over again, but you'll be able to reuse it later in the round. What's really neat is that there's no randomness. All the cards and possible moves are known to your opponents, so there are a lot of mind games in trying to predict what type of attack your opponent will try to make, and how to counter it effectively. You also want to make sure you can hit your attack. Whoever has a higher priority has an advantage and can go first. Also, if you hit the opponent, you have a chance of stunning them, which makes them unable to attack back. There are also a few super powerful moves that you can use once per round. Each character has a special card that is removed when it's used, and depending on what you combine it with, you can have different powerful effects. One of these is a finishing move that's specific to that character. The finishing moves are also very powerful, but you cannot use them until your health is lowered, so you have to plan carefully to make sure you can land your hit when you finally execute your finishing move. Just like in fighting video games, there are multiple game modes to BAAACK. The main one is one-on-one fighting, where you try to bring your opponent's life down to 0. But there is also an adventure mode where you can play alone or cooperatively against automated enemies and boss-type characters. BAAACK really feels like Street Fighter on a table. There are so many different characters and game modes in the box, and it's really exciting to go all out in a head-to-head battle with your opponent, trying to outwit them and counter their attacks. The special abilities of all the characters are unique and make them play very differently, so every game is a new experience. Thanks for watching Strategically Thematic. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
What's up, Throat Punch Lunch? We are the brothers Murph, and you know, growing up, we always used to love 3 things: playing mini golf, playing in the arcade, and swinging it in the batting cages. And where are we, Nick, where we can do all 3 of those things?
We're in Castle Park.
And this is Adventures in Board Gaming. All right, so this is Castle Park, and this is one of those great places that has the arcade, it has mini golf batting cages, and we've been going to these types of places our whole life.
Our dad used to always love taking us to places like this, especially this one place called Scandia, which is essentially the same place. They're all exactly the same. Funny story about our dad and our family, the woman in the backpack right there is our sister Rosie.
She got tattoos and whatnot.
Yeah, she's cool. There are actually 4 of us. There's one more.
4 Murphs. Murphs to the 4th power, and it's actually dangerous if we're all in the same room. That's why we're only showing you 3 at a time right now, especially because Rosie is the strongest of us all.
Yes, we're not allowed to show Chaz, our other brother, because he's just too magical to be on screen.
Yeah, he actually does not show up on conventional film. Look at this lad over here looking like, throwing up his shoulders, saying like, yeah, I don't know why you suck so much at golf. Let me see if I can shed some light on the situation.
I don't even know what's going on, but man, you are terrible at this.
Sure beats me why you couldn't get it in.
One thing I love about mini golf is like really how zen it is, and like how no one really cares if you're bad or good, and you just have fun no matter what.
Going to the chapel and we're gonna play putt golf. Okay, is it just us, or are these types of places always literally right next to the freeway?
No, you never have to travel over land to get to them.
It's like a big xylophone, you know? See the different tunes? A, G, G7. That song, is that from Greece?
Let's get it though. We're about to do the Mario Kart race up a hurt. What was your favorite game to play growing up?
Hydro Thunder. I'm always on the lookout for Hydro Thunder. I love that game. I play the exact same course every single time. Oh, I love it. Hydro Thunder is the best. This is okay, but Hydro Thunder is by far the best. You know what I think is really, really cool? Is these prizes are always really terrible and not worth how much money you can spend to get tickets for them. But look at the amount of board games they have up here. I mean, they're all like, you know, your battleships and Clue and Monopolies and stuff. But that's still pretty darn cool, man. It's only a matter of time till Twilight Imperium 4 is on the top. Only like 100 tickets. Alrighty, so we just finished a round of golf here at Castle Park. Yours truly got first place. Who got last place, Mike?
This guy, but I shared it with somebody, so technically it's not last.
It was thing. So now it's time for us to play a game. What game do we play at Castle Park? What could we possibly do? Here's a castle. I got a little castle here
for King Domino. That's right, we're gonna go into the kingdom to build our kingdoms. Let's get it. Oh.
King Domino is a really wonderful game. It's very light and easy. It's a domino tile laying game where you're trying to match up different landscapes with crowns in them and stuff to get the most points. It's the perfect game for it's like, hey, we got 15 minutes. Let's play a game. King Domino is it.
I know, and all I want is to play Queen Domino. Where is it?
So that was it. That is Castle Park here in Sherman Oaks, California. We are lucky. This place is like 2 blocks away from where we live, which we're really, really happy about.
We can walk along a nice river to get here, or a trough with water in it, which is the LA equivalent of a river. This place brings back so many feelings of nostalgia.
Yeah.
And playing a cool game like King Domino is quick and light. It's good for kids, and it just makes this place all the better.
Go ahead and check us out on all forms of social media, which is right here. Boop, 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 boop.
Do check out This Game Is Broken for all of your podcast needs. There's a new episode today.
Yes, today.
You can listen to it right now.
Episode 4.
Yeah. Just remember, life's an adventure.
So bring a game.
Hey, it's Jay, and it's time to talk about your flair. On 15 Pieces of Flair, I'm going to show you guys some ways to spruce up that game room. I kept watching Netter's Plays videos, and I kept noticing her trays she was using for components and dice and stuff. And I was thinking, are those made out of plastic? So I got a hold of her, and they're actually made out of felt, and she sells them on her Etsy page. But I was thinking, I could make those out of this stuff that I have called Kydex. It's a thermoplastic, you heat it up and it becomes malleable. But anyways, today I'm going to show you guys how to make this. Let's check it out. For this project, I use a 7" by 7" Kydex sheet, a T-square, a 5-inch 2x4, 3 other various length 2x4s, a heat gun, heat-resistant gloves, 2 large binder clips. It would actually be better with 4, but I could only find 2. And a permanent marker. On the piece of Kydex, mark a 1-inch border using the marker and square. Go to a place that will be safe to use your heat gun. Then, after putting on your gloves, make yourself a little house using the 2x4s. Then place your Kydex on top. You can now start to heat the Kydex using the heat gun. The house makes an oven type effect and you won't lose heat by placing it directly on the ground. Slowly but surely, your Kydex will become malleable. Once it is in a workable state, you quickly set it on the ground and align the 5-inch 2x4 at a corner. Then you fold up the 2 sides to the corner using the 2x4 as a guide and attach a clip to the plastic. Use a couple of the other 2x4s to hold the sides up so your sides are nice and straight. Once that has gotten hard again, about 20 to 30 seconds on a cold concrete floor, you can work on the opposite corner. Use the heat gun to target just that corner and perpendicular sides. Use the same process to clip that corner. Once that cooled, go ahead and repeat the process 2 more times on the other 2 corners. If your sides don't line up just right, you just reheat the plastic and rework those particular sides. You can now use your tray for anything, like rolling dice, holding gold, holding your minis, or anything else you can think of. Boom, there you have it. A quick and easy way to add some flair to your games. You can get this Kydex stuff infused with different graphics on it, like zombies, or Legos, or the Punisher, or these groovy watercolors, or the guy who drank from the wrong grail. Anyways, if you guys have any suggestions on games or ideas you'd like me to make into some flair, leave them in the comments below. But best, go to my Facebook page, pique your interest. Or you could send me a message on Twitter or Instagram, whatever, at halfhandicapped. Don't forget, 15 pieces of flair is the bare minimum. Some people choose to do more, and I definitely encourage that. Have fun, everybody.
Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson with Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here to bring you another episode of Solo-Thrash, Amerithrash gaming for those of us who like to play alone. So, do you ever get the craving to just go on an old school Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but you don't have any friends to play with or a dungeon master? Well, I have the solution for you, and that is the series of Dungeons and Dragons board games, beginning with Castle Ravenloft. Castle Ravenloft is a dungeon crawling game published by Wizards of the Coast and set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. There are actually several games in this series, each focusing on a different environment and set of villains, but in Castle Ravenloft, your quest is to defeat the evil vampire, Count Strahd. Your overarching quest is divided into several smaller chapters, most of which are actually written for 2 to 5 players, but 2 of which are purely solo scenarios. So to play through the whole game alone, you just need to control 2 or more characters. Fortunately, that's not too difficult. The rules of Castle Ravenloft are simple and they're intuitive, so once you open the box, you can start delving in no time. As you go through the game, your environment is determined by these little tiles that lock together pretty nicely, so even though there are certain tiles that are specific to certain scenarios, they can all be shuffled up and fit together for different parts of the campaign. And you, your hero, and the monsters are all represented by some pretty cool minis, including this totally fantastic Dracolich. So if you like pushing miniatures around on a map and beating up monsters, this is very much the game for you. As is usual in any Dungeons & Dragons game, the character you play will have specific skills with modifiers, and most conflicts are resolved through the roll of a die. I really enjoy Castle Ravenloft, but I also want to be honest with you about what you're getting if you buy it. Right now, a lot of the buzz on the internet is about these really heavy, exploration-based campaign games like Gloomhaven or something like Seventh Continent. And I want you to know that if you buy Castle Ravenloft, that's not what you're getting. What you're getting instead is a chance to have a fun, relatively short story experience where you get to play as a cool rogue or wizard, beat up some monsters, and then you can put the game away and you're done. So for me, that relatively simple combat system and the ability to play a quick story is kind of a relief. I play a lot of heavier games too, and you know, if I just want something relaxing to do that's not a card game, I really enjoy this. But if you're thinking about it, you should know that that's what you're going to get if you give it a try. Anyway, have a great week and happy gaming.
Hey everyone, Tim Jennette the Metal Meeple here, and this is the Budget Card Game Breakdown. Except this week, we aren't going to talk card games. I'm going to give you 5 random gaming accessories that our group uses normally for any game that we're playing at the table. These aren't in any particular order, except I did save my favorite for last. So let's start with number 5, plastic bowls. Now these plastic bowls are really good for holding components, as you can see here. You simply just open up bags, pour the components in. Now what I really like about these is the fact that they're super transparent. I mean, you can get glass ones if you want it, but these are about six of them for $1 at the dollar store. And what's cool, like I said, is they're super transparent, so they don't block your view. I mean, if they were colored or like white or something like that, you couldn't see what was in them very well from across the table. And so these, they keep your piles nice and neat. If somebody needs some gold or whatever, you can just hand them the bowl and everything. You don't have to have all these different piles and not be able to move them around and such. So they come in really handy, although I do like the glass ones as well. These are neat because you can just bust them out for any game, put all the components back in their bag, and move on to the next one. And you can just have those stack of cups with you. So that kind of segues us into number 4, which is a label maker. Now, obviously you might have used this in offices and things like that, or whatever you want to use label makers for, but in this case what we're actually doing is labeling our bags. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, you know, if you're like me and you label your or you put all your components in different baggies, not just the ones they come with, but you've bought like different sizes and things like that, I like to fill up the bag almost, so I don't have a lot of dead space inside the bag. And what's cool about this, one, they obviously once you're done, you can kind of use the cups and just dump them right back in. But more importantly, you can hand out handfuls of bags to different players when you're done playing, and you basically just gave them a job at the end to put all those components up. You don't have to tell much, just throw them 3 or 4 bags, and they can just read the label and they know what goes in them. So I think that's pretty cool. Number 3 is something that a lot of people might be familiar with, and it's actually a phone app. And this is an app to determine first player, or start player, sorry. A lot of games have their own kind of way to do it. Maybe some great gaming groups have their own ritual that they typically do whenever they want to assign a first player. But there is a game, or not a game, but there is an app called, I forgot the name here, Chwazi, C-H-W-A-Z-I. And let me show you on the screen here. Basically, up to 5 people can put their finger on here. I'm just going to simulate it with 3. And it's going to assign like a little ring to your color. And eventually one of them will show, there you go. So whoever's finger that one is, that's going to be the start player. And like I said, the downfall is it only goes up to 5 fingers, so only 5 players. But it is pretty useful. I think it's just super fast. I mean, we always have a D6 or a D8 laying around that we roll in case that doesn't work out. So number 2 is kind of a bonus. You're probably familiar with this, actually. It's the Dice Tower tokens here. Let me show you on the screen. But basically, these tokens are used for, you know, you put them in any game, you just kind of lay them on the table, and they represent different things. Now, these are Kickstarter rewards from the previous Dice Tower Kickstarter campaigns that were going on. You can also get these at conventions or email Tom and just donate to the show, and he'll give you the sets or whatever. This is 2 different sets, but basically it's just a fun little game. You know, if somebody is acting really suspicious, you can throw them this traitor. Somebody's trying to quote rules too much, this is a rule lawyer. you know, and the Kingmaker. You've got the Crybaby if they're whining about rules. The Slow Player, the Alpha Gamer. It comes to the first player marker, and my favorite and the one we always use is probably the target. Basically, whoever's doing the best or just happens to do one move that gets them tons of points or whatever, we throw that at them just to be like, all right, he's the target, right? Take him out. So anyway, we're going to move on to my number one. Like I said, these aren't in any order, but this is probably my favorite thing to always bring to game nights, and that is my boogie board. Now, the boogie board is actually a paper replacement tool, basically, and you slide it out of this case. It's super thin, as you can see. And if you're not familiar with these, they're basically, if the camera would focus, they're just writing pads. So you can see how they write different color. You know, it's green on black, and it has a reset button over here by my thumb, and that's simply just going to clear the screen. And on the back, you have some magnets if you want to use these for grocery lists on your refrigerator or whatnot. So anyway, hi. So the boogie board's really cool because games that require you to keep score a lot in the thousands and things like that, like Tichu or other games that require, you know, you play multiple rounds, like tumbling dice, for instance. You know, you score a bunch of points, you write down everybody's score, and then you play the game again, and you keep playing until somebody gets, you know, breaks that threshold or whatever score limit for that game. So the boogie board really helps because you don't have to worry about having pieces of paper laying around, and you don't have to worry about having a pen because it clips into it. If you have any idea or any things that your gaming group uses, please comment below. And, you know, let everybody else know these secrets. I mean, I think these are really fun tools to use, especially the ones that can work across any game pretty much, where applicable, obviously. So if you have any questions or concerns or whatever, feel free to email me at timjennette@gmail.com. Follow me on social media at the link below. Check out my podcast, Meeple Core. And until next time, keep on rocking and rolling dice.
Throat Punchies, I'm Forrest from Bower's Game Corner. I'm back again for 3 reasons where I do something vaguely related to the number 3. And today I'm continuing my list of Essen games. Last time I talked about 3 games that I knew were awesome because I've already got the chance to play them that are coming out at Essen. And now I'm talking about 3 games that I'm super excited about that are coming out at Essen that might be a little bit off the beaten path, a little bit off of your radar. So first I gotta give an honorable mention to Charterstone from Stonemaier Games. It's my most anticipated game of 2017, so obviously I'm super excited about that one, but everybody knows about Charterstone. I want to talk about some of the games that you might not have heard of. The first one is Christmas Stories from a game publisher called Moses, of all names. And this is kind of a sequel slash different spin on Black Stories or Dark Stories, which is a party-telling story game where one person is going to be the moderator. And they're going to read a card that's going to talk about a gruesome crime or a gruesome murder that is committed, and then everyone else is going to be an investigator trying to figure out and piece together what happened in this murder mystery and solve the murder mystery. Sounds really stinking cool, but it's based all around Christmassy stuff, which is my favorite time of the year. So Christmas Stories, murder mystery. I'm really digging the sound of this game. It sounds really, really cool. That is Christmas Stories from Moses. My next game is August spielt der Messi Krimi from Frosted Games. This is for 7 to 8 players, and this is a dinner murder mystery style game where you're going to be role-playing out a murder mystery where a famous video blogger was murdered at Essen, and then everyone is a suspect in the crime. And it was actually, the story was written by a crime case writer, so somebody who writes books about crime case. It's also by an avid board gamer, so I'm very excited about this. I've always wanted to try out one of those murder mystery dinner theater parties, and this one has a theme that really sucks me in, so really excited for that one. That is yeah, you know what it is. But last but not least, we have Free Links from BAAACK Games. And I want to break the fourth wall a little bit, fourth wall broken, and tell you that I have attention deficit hyper disorder. I might have a little bit of Asperger's as well, but that's undocumented. But I have ADHD. I've had ADHD my entire life, and empathy is something that I have a very hard time with. Identifying emotions, both my own and other people's, and understanding and comprehending emotions is something I have a very hard time with. And Free Links is a game where you're going to pick a card and you're going to read out loud a situation, and then you're going to pick an emotion that you would have in that situation, and then also try to bet how other people would feel in that said situation. It reminds me a little bit of like Dixit, but with emotions. And that sounds like a really cool concept for me, because I love anything that allows me to talk to other people about how they would feel in certain situations and their emotions and why they feel certain ways about certain things, but that's not always the most easy conversation to have with people about certain situations, especially what could potentially be risky situations. Risque, I guess with a Q. Now, I'm not sure if this has risque situations in the box, but still, I love any game that deals with emotions, because hopefully it will help me grow as a person and better comprehend other people's emotions. Also, working with kids, this seems like a great opportunity to play a game about emotions and helping identify those emotions. So for my number one, it's Free Links from BlackRock Games. Very off the beaten path, but still looks really cool to me. Let me know in the comments below, what is your most anticipated game of Essen? And if you're enjoying what I'm doing, be sure to check out my channel. But now, back to more throat punchy goodness.
Well, hey folks, I had some content that I wanted to include in the Throat Punch Lunch this week, but it didn't really fit into the two segments that I have, the 2 or 3 segments that I have. This is kind of a top 5, but I do have 3 honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list, but I thought they were worthy of note at least. So the first one, honorable mention that I was going to talk about here, is one that was actually on my top 10 games I was anticipating, and that is Dragon's Gate College from NSKN Games. So basically, I need to play it more before I actually give you a final verdict on it, but I did enjoy the experience, but I'm wondering if it was the experience with the other gamers that were involved, or it was the game that was giving me that enjoyment. Second honorable mention is a game from Board and Dice called In Between. It has this real kind of Stranger Things type vibe going on to it. I thought it was really interesting, had a great time playing it at the board game event that we went to on Saturday night. So you'll be hearing more about this one, but I wanted to include it. It's a really fun game. And then finally, the last honorable mention is a game that I just demoed. I played a very shortened version of it. It's called Village Attacks by Grimlord Games. Now, the heroes of the game are actually the bad guys that are trying to protect their fortress of solitude or what have you. And the villagers are the people that are coming into the castle trying to attack it and trying to destroy everything. And you're trying to hold them off. Those are my honorable mentions. Let's get to my top 5. Now, my number 5 is a game that we first heard of in the presser event at Essen, which is the day before the actual convention starts, and this one is called Dead Man's Doubloons. Now, I played this with, it was myself, Ilya from Whirlpool Reviews, Tom and Jason played this. It was a 4-player game, and it's a really neat game where it's a pirate game where you're racing around. Well, you're not really racing. You're kind of moving around this island, and your crew is battling the other players' crews on their ships, while the captain is trying to look for the hidden treasure that's on the island. And basically, it's whoever gets the most points is the winner. But my number 4 is a game that we were looking forward to at great length, and that is Dragon Castle. Now, this is the same. This is from the same designer that put out Photosynthesis by Blue Orange Games. This is put out by Horrible Games, and it is a home run. Really enjoy the game a lot. We're going to be Miami dicing this, I think, already, or we are going to be doing it later on today. I can't really remember when it's scheduled to be coming out, but this is a great one. We had a lot of fun, beautiful components, really a good time. And my number 3 is this little guy right here, put out by Osprey Games, called Samurai Gardener. Now, this is a card tile laying game where you're trying to configure your garden in such a way to score the most points. Whoever gets the 25 points scores the end of the game, and then if somebody goes past 25, whoever has the most points at the end of that final round is the winner. But this has a very Hanging Gardens feel to it, where you're placing cards on top of overcards, possibly overlapping other things. Now, my number 2 is this one right here, Sakura, and I was introduced to this one just on a whim. We were kind of just milling around the booth there before the convention actually got started, and somebody said, hey, you want to give this a try? I was like, sure, let's do it. And so I wasn't really expecting too much out of it, didn't have any thought of it before then, but it's actually really fun. It has a trick-taking feel to it, although you're not really doing that. You're not really taking tricks, and if you do have to take cards from the middle of the table, it's usually a bad thing because it has a whole bunch of points in it, and you're not wanting to get points in this game. Really fun game. Doesn't take that long to play either. Pretty light. I really enjoyed it. This one, my number 2 games played at Essen, Sakura. And then finally, my number 1 game that I played at Essen, the one that I enjoyed the most, and the one that I probably played the most as well, is this one right here, Shadows in Kyoto. Now, Shadows in Kyoto is one that I've been looking forward to for a long time because it is the sequel, I guess you could say, to Hanami Koji. It has that same box size, it has the same 2-player feel to it, where one person is trying to outwit the other one and trying to outthink the other one a number of different ways. And it also has this smash-up feel of Onitama and Stratego. And so if you take those 2 games, and if they had a love child, then this would be it, beyond the shadow of a doubt. It has variable player powers. It has a number of different things that you can do as far as special abilities, special moves that you use. So that's it from me today. That's all I wanted to really share with you. We'll be hitting up some of those other segments. I do have some cool accessories that are coming from Essen that just haven't got here yet, so I'm going to be hitting up the accessorized segment here pretty soon. When that stuff arrives, I think you'll enjoy that stuff. But that's it. Let's get back to your lunch.
I'm Max Lathrop, and welcome to Gaming Unplugged, where we cut the cable and we hit the table. Hey, what are you doing in my car? Oh, hello there. I'm Phil Buckets, professional wine critic extraordinaire, world-renowned lover of the fine things in life. Today we're going to talk about one of the oldest crafts in mankind's long and rich history. And that is viticulture, the art of winemaking, turning this innocuous, delicious fruit, the grape, and transmutating it into the nectar of royalty and gods, wine. How did wine come to be in the first place? Well, legend has it it all began in the prehistoric period when a Neanderthal stumbled upon a wild grape patch. He gathered all the grapes he could muster, filled his bare hide full to the brim. He brought the grapes back home to his missus and his little ones inside the cave. But winter was coming, so he thought to himself, I must save some of this delicious fruit. And in their attempt to gather and hoard grapes throughout the long, harsh winter, the grapes began to ferment because they were going rotten. And during the time of starvation and famine, the cavemen ate the grapes and got merry and jolly and started to feel funny as they became intoxicated by its beauty and its magnificence. I don't believe that this is at all how wine was made, but I like that story a lot. No! And it wasn't until sometime during the medieval period when mankind became sophisticated enough to stop tossing their rotten fruit about their dwellings loosely, and they became sophisticated enough to find a new container for such juices, and that became what we know today as the wine barrel. The wine barrel is what gives the wines its character and its oaky flavor. I think. I don't really know. Viticulture is as part of humanity as our DNA. As long as men still walk this earth, wine will be a part of us. Forever. Why am I still holding these grapes? Hey guys, welcome back to Gaming Unplugged. I'm Max Lathrop, and in today's segment, if you couldn't tell from the intro, we're going to be talking about the game Viticulture. Now, Viticulture fits in my category of pleasant surprises because, in full disclosure, I actually bought the game more as a novelty because my brother and his wife recently bought a winery, and I'm like, hey man, look at this game, it's about making wine. Maybe I can kind of con them into playing board games with me with this little guy here. And, but I gotta say, once I broke into the game, it almost immediately became one of my favorite worker placement games. I mean, there's an amazing summer-winter mechanic where you gotta ration your workers between different seasons. The components are fantastic and well thought out, and the theme plays out through the game, like, perfectly. I mean, it is awesome. So let's get down to business and take a look at her. Essentially, in Viticulture, you're the owner of a vineyard in pre-modern Tuscany. The object of the game is to sell as much wine as you can to earn victory points for the win. But the way you go about doing it is what makes this game so special. You have to go through all the different tasks in order to actually get the wine. You don't just like all of a sudden have wine cards or something and then you get to play them and get points. You have to actually plant different varieties of grapes to accomplish your goals of the types of wine orders you're trying to fill. I mean, you've got Merlot, you've got Cabernet Sauvignon, you've got Chardonnay and a bunch of others. And what's cool about the game is there's a bunch of others that I didn't really know about. And so I actually got to learn a little bit about wine in the process with these different grape varieties. Once you've planted them, you actually have to take actions to harvest them. And then they go in your crush pad where you can age the grapes there as they ferment. And then you have to then take actions to make the wine itself, in which case you have them in barrels in your cellars, and then they get to age over the course of the years, which are the rounds of the game. One of the other things I love about this game is the way that the rounds are separated by different seasons. So you'll have a different area of the board where you'll be placing workers during the summer, and then the other half of the board where you're placing workers during the winter. Now, of course, you only have a certain amount of workers to use throughout the entire year, so you have to be really careful about how you ration out those workers from summer to winter. The summer and winter worker cards are really fun. I mean, these are cards that you get to draw, and they grant you special abilities, special one-time actions that you can take. And what gamer isn't a sucker for awesome components? And boy, does this game not disappoint. Every single meeple in the game for every different structure that you can build is completely custom and unique. I mean, the little windmill blew me away when I first saw it. I love that attention to detail. The little wine bottle for the reoccurring payments. I mean, they could have just used cubes for most of this stuff, but they didn't. And how about those glass beads they use for the grape and wine markers? I mean, when I first opened the box, I'm like, are we doing arts and crafts time or something with these things? And then when I finally started playing with them and saw how the glass beads actually magnify the numbers to indicate your wine and your grape value, my mind was literally blown on that one. 2 words: Grande Meeple. The Grande Meeple, every player gets one, and it allows you to take an action that someone else has already taken. So if the spot's already full, you can use your Grande Meeple to take that action anyway. And how about that custom insert, baby? I mean, seriously, why don't every game company make custom inserts to organize all the pieces, man? I love it. Well, that's it for this segment, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you couldn't tell, I really, really, really enjoy Viticulture. It's a fantastic game. If you're a fan of worker placement, Euro-style games, definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed. And please follow me in all those fun socials. I really appreciate all that support. I'm working on getting a custom URL from YouTube, which takes a little bit. So right now it's just a long string of Klingon, but you can find the link to my channel in my Facebook and on my Instagram. So until next time, game on!
How many times I gotta tell you to pick up your stupid meeples, Max?
Me like me some board games?
Hey, welcome to Throw Punch Lunch. My name is Bobby, and this is We'll Learn As We Go, where I'm going to talk about some games and how I would teach those particular games. Today, I actually have a buddy of mine joining me. Say hi, Joseph.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Joseph is behind the camera because he told me that he doesn't want to be in front of the camera today. But I thought it'd be fun if I teach Joseph a game that he's never played before, and I teach it to him on camera. So that's what we're going to do on We'll Learn As We Go today. And today, I'm going to teach him a game called Allegiance: A Realm Divided.
Sounds good.
Beautiful artwork in this game, by the way. Allegiance: A Realm Divided. When you look at this game, Joseph, what does it remind you of?
Honestly, if anyone else knows about this, it reminds me of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah. So this game seems like Magic the Gathering, at least at first glance, but you're going to soon find out that it's kind of different, and that's kind of where I'm going to take you from. I'm going to act like you know how to play Magic the Gathering, and then I'm going to teach it as if I'm teaching the differences from Magic the Gathering. So you picked a character. You picked Miss Bellamy here, who's a ranger. And I picked Root Claw, who's a deep forest druid. Most important thing about him is he will turn into a bear later on in the game.
Intriguing.
All right, so how we play this game is you have a board here. This is your health. This number denotes your production. So basically every turn, how many gold you're going to produce that turn. So you start off with 5 of production, you're going to go to 6 and stuff like that. And this is how many gold you have right now. So right now you have 0 gold.
Right.
Basically how this game goes is we're going to go through these phases of the turn, and you have the turn phases there. And then during the maneuver phase, that's basically where we're going to do a bunch of the gameplay. During the production phase, that's really easy. All you're going to do is increase your production rating by 1. And then you're going to look at whatever number that is, and you're going to increase your gold by that much. So you'll have 6 gold at that point. During the refresh phase, that's kind of like typically Magic where you quote-unquote tap a character. In this game, it's just exhausting. This is the time where you would untap it or unexhaust it. You would also move all your counters that you have on the board. So like during the game, I'll have a bunch of counters on the board on the different numbers. You would move it one step closer to being ready. That brings me to how these actions work. In this game, kind of differently from Magic, basically you have a bunch of different player actions that you can, or character actions that you could take. You can only take those actions when they're ready. The counter is on ready. When you take the action, it pulls it away to a number, and then you have to wait until it gets ready again, and that's when you could take it. These actions are signified by things such as your cards that you start off with. And so that's kind of how you manipulate it during the game. When it's ready, you could do whatever. And you can't go to a level 2 action unless you've unlocked at least one level 1 action, and so on and so forth. Anyway, from the draw phase, you draw from one of our shared decks. That's another difference from Magic. We have a bunch of cards from shared decks. I've already given you some cards to start off with. You got a couple of basic units, elite units, actions cards. These are really cheap units. Like this, the gold cost is 8. These are really expensive ones. Like this, the gold cost is 11. These are kind of like reaction and interrupt stuff. This one, the gold cost is 3. So that's what we do during the draw phase. You could draw from one of the decks if you want. And then during the maneuver phase, you could do a bunch of things like unlocking a hero ability, which means if you've done a level 1 action, you've unlocked it, you could unlock a level 2 action. You could use a hero ability. That's one of these ones here, and most of them are manipulated within the game through these cards, like I talked about. You could enlist a unit, which can be one of the units that you started off with, including the units that come in these card decks here. The cost in gold, by the way, is printed in a gold icon. Or you could play an action card, which is one of those purple ones. You could initiate a battle, or you can use an ability of a card in play. And then obviously with battle, this is the attack number and this is the HP number. So this is probably a better one to show. This is the attack number, this is an HP number. We can block each other's units. So if I attack with Reserve Force Captain, you have the Phantasmal Guardian, you can block. I'll do 3 damage to that 8 health. You'll do 4 damage to my 5 health. And in this game, we track health through these dice here. So if you did 4 damage, I'll only have 1 health left. Oh, no. And if I did 3 damage, you'll have 5 health left. And then you may ask what these blue dice are. These are basically like 1/1 counters. So if I happen to have this one on here and it's a 2, then basically it adds 2 to each one of these numbers here. So that's what the dice are used for. That's what the counters are used for. After that, we do the end of turn where we trigger any end of turn phases, and you could refer to your reference sheet for all the things that I talked about. Other than that, this is another kind of one of those we'll learn as we go games. So that's really all you need to know to learn how to play the game. Oh, and then these gold ones denote that it's a reaction action. These ones are just normal actions. But really, that's all you need to know how to play the game. So Joseph, let's play Allegiance Realm Divided. Until next time, my name has been Bobby. You've been watching We'll Learn As We Go on Throw Punch Lunch. Bye.
This is Roy Cannaday from Epic Gaming Night, and this is Roll with the Punches, where we talk about randomness in games and how it can make a game exciting, and also how to twist luck into your favor. Today we're going to be taking a look at an LCG that's a reprint of an old CCG, and that is Legend of the Five Rings. In Legend of the Five Rings, you're either trying to knock out your opponent's provinces, get 25 honor for yourself, or bring your opponent down to 0 honor. Those are the 3 ways you can win the game. This game has the normal randomness of regular CCGs, where you're going to be drawing from decks randomly, but for your cards here, you're going to be drawing from your Destiny deck and placing them out. This will give you your different characters and such that you'll put out into the field of battle. There's also a conflict deck, which are going to be a bunch of like event type cards that you can play to boost those characters and have little combat tricks to try to take out your opponent. So you're going to have different attributes for the 2 different types of combat, and you're going to be trying to take out your opponent's stuff. One of the interesting things about this that kind of changes up the randomness is that you're going to be bidding each round on how many cards you're going to be drawing from that conflict deck. So the more cards you have, the more likely you're going to be able to do crazy tricks to be able to win in combat. But as you bid higher on this, the difference in between that you have to give to your opponent in honor. So that can make them run out of honor, give you more honor, and make it so you can win the game. And there's also a lot of other tricks that play off of this honor. So you're going to try to bid trying to get more of these cards that you can play in combat so you can do all sorts of exciting things, and they're all going to have their different costs associated, but these cards are relatively cheap overall. Just having the cards in your hand is what you really need. So say I bid 3 and my opponent bids 1, then I would get to draw 3 cards and they'd only get to draw 1, but then I would have to give the difference to them. So I'd have to give away some of my fate or some of my honor, which is not good at all based off some of my different clans cards. So there's that, and then the randomness of the drawing of the deck and getting your guys out here. You can also try to attack your opponent's specific provinces, which can knock out some of the cards that they might be able to play, because you're going to be playing cards, spending fate to play those specific cards that you'll regain each round. Typical CCG type stuff, but lots of exciting, interesting randomness as you're trying to knock out your opponent's strongholds to make it so they have less options for their cards, and making sure you have lots of conflict cards in your own hand to take them out. Legend of the Five Rings definitely has a lot of classic card game randomness, but the way you get those cards is very interesting because you have that conflict deck with that dial where you're trying to like figure out what your opponent's doing so that way you won't let them gain too much honor as you're dialing in how many cards you're going to draw, but those cards are very crucial for combat and trying to make sure you're winning battles. And then the Destiny deck, as you're trying to get your different characters out onto the board, and you have your provinces, and you can kind of like see what your opponent might be able to play in future rounds and try to attack those provinces and take those cards out. Lots of interesting stuff in Legends of the Five Rings, and interesting ways to mitigate it through deck building and trying to play the cards at the right time. So this has been Roll with the Punches, and we'll see you next time.
Hey everybody, Even Steven here. Today we're going to look at Pitch Card, the dexterity game where you're going to be flicking your card disc around the track trying to get first place. I'm going to give you some tips for playing and a quick debrief so you can see if you are interested in this game. The first tip I have for teaching Pitch Card is building the track itself. The track is built out of pieces that are these heavy particle board material with this hard slate on top, and you're going to be piecing them together in a puzzle to create a track. My first tip is to make sure you start off with simple tracks that players can easily get through with not a lot of curves at first, as to gain their footing before you move on to the harder, more difficult tracks. When teaching new players, I also make sure to let them get a warm-up to get a feel for how to flick the car. Remember in Pitch Card that you need to flick the car around the track, making sure that its car side is face up. On your turn, you simply flick the disc, and as long as it stays in play, you will flick your car from the next location on your next turn. However, if your car flips over or goes off the track, you will go back to where you started. The first tip for flicking in pitch car that I use is to make sure to tell players not to flick as hard as they can because they might go flying off of the track. A little bit of power goes a long way, so if players flick as hard as they can, they might go flying off of the track. Whereas if they use a little bit of power, they can go a short way and make sure that they stay safely on the track. Another tip I have for teaching players how to flick is sometimes I don't even pull my finger back like this. I simply flick my finger like this. It helps the car stay in a straight line and helps reduce power so that you don't go flying off the track, and it allows you to be more accurate. The next tip I have for players is for when you have another player in front of you that might be blocking your direct path, sometimes you might have to use the rails along the outside of the track. In this instance, if we can flick and curve around this track, we can get ahead of this red player. So if we flick and use that rail, we can now get around him and you can use it to your advantage. Using the rails is especially important when you're going around curves, as you can use it to gain momentum to slide into the lead in front of your opponents. Even if you give it a lot of power, the rails keep you in play. Another tip for new players is to use their car position to their advantage. For example, this red player is almost to the finish line. However, if this blue player can flick ahead of them and block their path, it's going to make it a lot tougher for red to get to the finish line. So if they can flick just ahead of the red car, that means their next shot will be a lot tougher. A tip I have for building new pitch car tracks is if you want a more difficult setting for you pitch car experts, you can take off these rails to make it much harder to stay on the track. However, if you're playing with a lot of new beginners, I recommend using as many of these rails as you can, as it helps them stay on the track and keep their confidence up. As a track builder, you also need to keep in mind how many players are playing the game. For example, with 8 cars, this track is going to get very crowded, so you might need to build a larger track to spread all of the cars out to give you a more enjoyable experience. The next tip I have for pitch car is if you end up enjoying the experience, there are 6 expansions that you can get that add different pieces to your track that you can add or subtract to your choice. For example, there's a curve with 2 channels that you have to go through. There's an actual jump where you have to go over it. There's a channel which can really block up other players. There are half straights and half curves. When you come back around your track, you actually have to flick through the tunnel. And last but not least, there are even holes on the track where you can actually flick in and lose your space on the board. There's even a 3D part where you would go up on another track above the others. And what's nice about this is you can introduce piece by piece to not overwhelm new players on a new track. One of my final tips for pitch car is the actual finish. When you do finish, a lot of times I like to have new players do multiple races on short courses as to build their confidence, and if they're in last place, that gives them an opportunity for the next race to make up for it, to maybe get first then. Also, another thing I like to do with a big group of players is split up into 2 teams. And for each place finish, I like to award points. So first place might get 10 points, second place might get 8 points. This way, even if you are in one of the last 2 spots, your point total matters for your overall score for your team. And you can do multiple races of this to really make it a big grandiose tournament style. Okay guys, that's all the time we have for today. Hopefully that got you interested in pitch car. It's a great party dexterity game. We'll see you next time. Let me know in the comments, do you have any other tips for teaching pitch car or for new players? Let me know. And do you build large tracks? Do you have any custom tracks or rules that you use? Let me know. We'll see you next time.
Well, that is that for this week's episode of Throat Punch Lunch. I have to say that the Adventures in Board Gaming segment really brought back some nostalgia for me, because Castle Golf and Games in San Antonio, Texas is exactly like that place. And I used to go there as a kid all the time. Loved the arcade. There was also a bumper boats section of the park. The batting cages was always fun. And of course, the miniature golf as well. So that was a trip down memory lane for me as well. Well, that's it for this segment of Throat Punch Lunch. I want to thank all of you for joining us. We we make this content so that you guys can consume it, and that is the main reason why we do it. We want to help grow the hobby. We want to make sure that we are staying informed as to the best of our ability, and we want to share that information and knowledge with you guys as well. So we certainly hope you've been enjoying it. My contributors, I want to send a hearty thank you out to all of you. You're doing a great job. Please keep it up, and thank you so much for providing this content for our viewers. Well, that's it from us this week. We'll see you in a couple weeks on the flip side for the next Throat Punch Lunch, the show that's nicer than it sounds.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.